Hello everyone, Minute Plus Meditation here, Wednesday, May the 4th. So from the first reading, we're back to the kind of normal cycle of readings, the Acts of the Apostles. On the day that Stephen was killed, a severe persecution began against the church in Jerusalem, and all except the apostles were scattered throughout the countryside of Judea and Samaria. Now I heard it, and there's so much more in this, but I'm focusing on this point. So much for our meditation. But I've heard it said, I can't remember by who, this may have been by Scott Hahn, I can't remember, that the first Christians were so convinced, that the gospel was basically meant for the land of what we would call Israel or Palestine, the promised land, that they really didn't factor going out beyond into the Gentile territory. It was just very difficult to get through. Maybe Gentiles within, the promised land, but Gentiles outside of the promised land going to, ultimately places like Rome no, it just didn't factor in. So persecution is never good. Persecution came because they were actually faithful to the gospel message, to what Jesus told them to do: talk about me, preach about me, tell the good news, and that I am the only Messiah, and so on. So they just did that. And as a result of that, they experienced persecution. And as a result of the persecution, they had to scatter. So it is accurate to say that God used the persecution to basically scatter the seeds of the gospel all over the Roman Empire. And so God used the evil and the sin of persecution for his own good, for the good of spreading the gospel. And then they realized the power of the gospel when they went to these Gentile pagans. So yeah, some of them rejected the gospel, but many of them accepted the gospel. And then it spread like wildfire all over the empire. So, sometimes when we think, what good can come from what I'm going through right now, and we can't see the forest for the trees, to use an expression, but we have to kind of be faithful to what God is calling us to do, to live according to the gospel, and good will always come out of it. God always wants to bring good out of our difficulties, our struggles, our sufferings. We can't see it. I don't see it any better than you at times. But if we're faithful, God will always bring good out of it. So that's the first reading. And then over to the gospel, we're continuing with the Eucharistic discourse of John chapter 6. And then we are in verses 35 to 40 because we see an intensification occurring as we continue through John chapter 6. So again, there's so much here to focus on, but Jesus, he says, I have come down from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. And this is the will of him who sent me, that I should lose nothing of all that he has given me, but raise it up on the last day. So Jesus has come here not to do his own will, and this is something we should really chew on, and digest so that it gets down deep into our own spiritual stomach, as it were, into our bones, into our brains, into our soul, that we are here not to do our own will, but to do the will of God. And it's easy to say this, we all know this. It's easy to say this, and sometimes it sounds so wonderful, and it may even at times be easy to do God's will. But there are other times when it's downright difficult to do God's will. And it's not a matter of just doing God's will and then not doing God's will. But where the challenge is that we are called to conform ourselves to doing what God wants all the time. All the time. And that doesn't mean we're not going to enjoy life. It doesn't mean we're not going to enjoy a leisure time or relaxation time, time with the children, time even watching good TV programs. But it does mean that we will conform ourselves to God's will, right? So that we're avoiding anything. We have no internal dialogue with sin, or if it comes at us, no, I don't need that garbage. I don't need that poison. I don't need that filth in my life. And that we make decisions. We allow God to call us as his children to do his will and not what that fallen part of us wants to do. So it really has practical, specific, concrete, tangible implications. So today, I really encourage you as we travel through John chapter 6, to renew your resolve, to catch yourself throughout the day saying, Lord, I want to do only what you want me to do. Not just at moments, but all the time. God bless you.